If you were 2-7, you'd be in a bad mood too.
Whoa, he has trouble with the snap, and the ball is free. And he hits the upright again. That's impossible.
Get your mouth shut. Get your mouth shut. Jerk.
The Bears' season's going to end on a double doink.
If worms had machine guns, then birds wouldn't be scared of them.
Hey, how's everyone doing out there? Welcome to a Word Hole Media presentation of the Limp Ditkas podcast. I'm Pete.
I'm Ryan. Welcome to the Limp Ditkas podcast. I'm coming to you live from the home state of Michigan for the first time in a while. PV is still holding down the fort in Chicago. We've got a big show number 9 for you guys.
Number 9.
Got our LDP. We're going to lead off with our LDP top 6 in the college ranks. I've got some thoughts about a lot of things going on controversially around the college game. I've got a little bit of thoughts about Michigan State football, which is far less relevant than the first half of our college conversation. But after that, we've got some Detroit Lions general manager search news that I want to talk about. And we definitely need to talk about the Dallas Cowboys kicking some ass this week. And got some shit you couldn't make up, a little segment we like to throw in from time to time. There's plenty of fun shit we couldn't make up. So let's go ahead and jump into the LDP top 6. I don't think anything's changed on my end for the top 6 we've had for the last few weeks, mainly because some teams didn't play and there wasn't a big shakeup anywhere in the higher rankings. So I think we're going to probably stick with Notre Dame number 1, Alabama number 2.
Agreed.
Number 3 would be Clemson. Number 4 is Ohio State. They didn't get to play the game against Michigan. I'm going to keep them at number 4 for now. We can talk about that in a bit. Number 5, I think we still had Texas A&M, and number 6 was Cincinnati. Are you changing any of those?
No. It was interesting that Iowa State has moved up in the actual playoff.
We need to talk about all of that. What the college football playoff committee came up with is increasingly so biased to the Power 5 conferences.
Yeah.
We'll get into it, but Iowa State was egregious. I mean, they have 2 losses, don't they? Or do they just have the one?
Who?
Iowa
What'd
State.
you say? Yeah, they have 2 losses.
Yeah. So
yeah, they've got 2 losses. And let's jump into so Florida loses to LSU. Okay.
Well, that was the next one I was going to bring up. They've got 2 losses now.
They've got 2 losses and they're sitting at 7.
They moved. They lost to LSU and moved down 1 slot from 6 to 7.
Here's my problem with that.
Yeah.
Alabama pasted LSU.
Right.
They wiped the floor with LSU.
And LSU has been terrible all year. It's not like that was a respectable loss in any way. It's not.
It wasn't. And I don't understand how you fall 1 spot and could maybe with beating, if somehow, which they're not going to, I can tell you.
A lot of things have to happen for Florida to be able to make the playoff.
You need Northwestern to lose, you need Texas A&M to lose, and they have to beat Alabama. Ain't gonna happen.
Yeah.
But you're 100% correct. The bias towards the power conferences is almost too much at this point in time.
Yeah. I mean, you see it every year with the SEC. So I could sort of understand that, although in this case it makes no sense just because LSU is having such a shit year. You cannot give Florida credit for losing that game, a game they should not have lost. I can't wait to get into that, but the Iowa State side is giving credit to the Big 12 over teams like Cincinnati Cincinnati's the ones that's getting ripped off. We've been their champion all year long, but they're kind of a victim to not playing much. Like I don't know how many weeks it's been since they played, but people are like forgetting they're even out there, and so the playoff committee keeps dropping them through no fault of their own. Yet they don't drop teams like Florida for fucking losing games they shouldn't be losing. So I don't know. None of it is really relevant or matters at all until next week when the real final rankings come out. All of this is just for conjecture and for assholes like us to talk about on stupid podcasts like this. So it's all kind of fodder, for nothing until next week. So it's fun to talk about, I guess, but this seems like the dumbest ranking I've seen in a long time, with just specifically Iowa State and Florida. But so I don't think, I'm wondering, well, I mean, we'll have our final LDP rankings next week after everything plays out with the championship games and everything else. So that I'm assuming is going to be fairly similar to, well, we'll see. I mean, we might have a lot to bitch about if Florida does, and somehow everything falls into place for them to actually make the playoff. There would be a lot of people talking about that. That would be interesting. But like you said, they're not beating Alabama. I mean, that's the first thing that needs to happen. And they need a lot of luck after that. They're just not going to beat Alabama. So
No.
The best thing about that loss, I don't know if you watched Florida and LSU on Saturday night.
I did not.
It turned into a fog bowl. That was crazy. Actually, it was hard to see. They had to have the overhead, like behind the quarterback camera. That's kind of like the video game angle. They had to use that most of the game because you couldn't see the field from the typical above the stadium shot. So, but the best part of that game was, I'm sure everyone's heard about it now, the famous Marco Wilson throwing a shoe to get a personal foul. You didn't see this?
No.
Oh my God, this is all over the place. This is going to be my shit you couldn't make up. It was a back and forth game, which it should not have been, but Florida was kind of pulling away and had stopped LSU on what should have been their final drive. They had stopped them on third and, I don't know, it was like a 3rd and 12 play or something, and they stopped them short, and they were going to have to punt, and it was looking bleak for LSU. But I think he's a defensive back. Marco Wilson saw that the runner's shoe had fallen off, and in celebration for stopping them short of the first down, he picked up the shoe and threw it down the field. And of course, the ref saw it and gave him an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, giving them a first down, which led them to kick a 58-yard field goal that ended up winning them the game because Marco Wilson threw a shoe. So you could see memes all over the internet, like Austin Powers, who throws a shoe? Like, really, who throws a shoe? So I couldn't believe it. Like, it's the most boneheaded play ever. The game was over pretty much if he hadn't thrown the shoe. And the referee even had the referee's call of it was even priceless. He's like, unsportsmanlike conduct on Florida. The guy threw a shoe 20 yards down the field. Like, he even said 20 yards in his description of the unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, which I thought was fucking hilarious. So yeah, that's literally shit you couldn't make up. So
idiots.
They would have a much more legit reason to be considered a top 10 team if they hadn't lost that game and lost that game in hilarious fashion. But somehow it doesn't matter if you do throw a shoe because you're still going to be ranked number 7. You had some comments about Ohio State before we got on the air here. Ohio State and possibly Dabo Sweeney stirring the pot.
Dabo or Dabo? Is it
Dabo?
Dabo, potato. Yeah, so it started earlier in the week where he was questioning how the college playoff committee could even entertain putting Ohio State in the playoffs, which is as few games as they've played. That it's not fair to the other teams that have played a full schedule. And to a degree...
full schedule meaning he played 10 games?
a minimum of 10 games, which is pretty much what everyone's played. So.
Yeah, but who came up with that minimum? I mean, this is all made up. So, like him saying that he's playing a full schedule. Well, 10 games is not a full schedule. Ohio State played all the games they could.
Yeah, it's been out of most of it's been it's all been out of Ohio State's control. So, I do. I mean, part of me sees this point of view. I mean, they've won 5 games. They're going to probably win 6. And they've only had to play a questionable football conference all season. So, but again, this is a different year. And they look like a quality team to me. So I don't have a problem with them making the college playoff. But it's interesting that, he's a coach. It's a coach's poll too, so he's obviously not putting Ohio State there. He thinks, obviously he's going to talk about his conference and teams that have 1, 2 losses that deserve to be there more because they play more games. So, I see it, but I also don't think that Ohio State, again, it wasn't like they said at the beginning of the year, well, we're only going to play 6 games. That's not, that's out of their control. So.
Well, he's obviously politicking in case Clemson loses, and he's trying to eliminate any competition that could possibly eliminate him from the playoff. But I feel like,
if Clemson loses, they're out of the playoff.
Yeah, that's all he's doing. He's just using anything he can to politic for his boys, but I don't think it's going to work. And it
I mean, they would have. I mean, why? How could you essentially put them in the playoff to almost could possibly play the same freaking game again the following week or whatever?
Well, that would be where the playoff committee could kind of finagle things and make, so they're not 2 and 3. They can make them 2 and 4, so they have different opponents or whatever. But
I mean, if Notre Dame beats Clemson twice, I think there's a legitimate argument for Notre Dame to be the number 1 team in the country.
We've been arguing it all year. So
I know, but like in the playoff committee, I mean, they would have beat them as number 1 and as number 3.
Right.
Like, how are you not the number 1 team in the country? And they're 10.5-point dogs in this game.
They in the committee could say that would be their reasoning for moving them up, but the real reasoning was just so we don't get a three-peat of that matchup in the first round, or at least semifinal.
Definitely if they beat them, I don't think we have to worry about that.
Right.
I think what happens is, my guess is Ohio State moves up to the 3rd spot, and Texas A&M, barring any catastrophes, moves up to the number 4 spot.
Well, hell, I mean, if Florida plays them close and loses to Alabama, they'll probably just move them to number 4. They fucking love the SEC, so why not?
Yeah, maybe. It's gonna be it's the scenarios. I mean, are interesting. What happens if? Both Clemson has an advantage just because they're going to change up what they did because they lost the game, right? And it goes back to that whole theory that a losing team in a second matchup kind of has an advantage, and the advantage is that they're more likely to change their game plan more than Notre Dame would be, right? So Notre Dame may be more predictable in the game, Clemson less predictable, but Clemson also has their starting number 1 pick quarterback back for this game, so that's
a big difference.
Yeah. So somehow that makes suddenly Notre Dame 10.5-point underdogs, even though they already beat them.
10.5. Wow, that's 10.5. A big line.
And I don't want to spoil the end of the show, but we could do it right now. I mean,
go ahead.
Take freaking Notre Dame in the points, guys.
Yeah,
they're not gonna lose by a touchdown and a field goal.
Where is that game?
It's a neutral site. It's
probably like the Georgia Dome or Mercedes.
No, I think it's actually in an outdoor state. I forgot. I said it a few weeks ago. I can't think of it right now.
Charlotte?
But
I have no idea. I don't pay attention to ACC much.
But there was some this conversation. Sweeney had brought this up days ago, and then this conversation came back up yesterday because there was some back and forth that the ACC canceled games of Notre Dame and Clemson this week to protect the matchup and
They
protect
absolutely
them.
did. They absolutely
And
did.
he responded back, if the ACC was really trying to protect Clemson and Notre Dame, why would we even play the game this week? Which I thought was a funny freaking response, because you do risk like having less presence in the college football playoffs.
You risk the millions of dollars of their
Television
championship
revenue
game, right?
you're gonna
I mean,
get.
that's just a stupid remark on
I
his
know.
part.
I thought it was kind of funny. I don't like him.
Dabo,
His name freaking nickname's Dabo.
Dabo the clown.
Yeah. So, but I thought that was like some interesting stuff going on this week. But if you are looking for PV's upset special this week, I mean, Notre Dame and the points is easy money.
Dig it.
So, So
well, to wrap up our college conversation, I do have to bring up my Michigan State Spartans, who lost the land grant trophy to Penn State, the lamest trophy in all of sports. I wasn't expecting much out of it. They did have a pretty good first half with their new quarterback, Peyton Thorne, getting his first start. They scored 21 points in the first half, which was never been done under Mel Tucker's regime. So that was a good sign. Peyton Thorne, who I like to call Thornton Mellon, my back to school reference for the night. But the best thing that came out of that game was the unveiling of Gruff Sparty, the greatest logo in sports history. It's actually from my childhood, the old school Michigan State Sparty. If you haven't seen it before, he is pretty much looks like a Spartan that's had a pretty rough life. Maybe a Spartan that's had a few DUIs, maybe a bit of a drinking problem. He might be a little bit behind on his rent because he's got child support payments to maybe 3 or 4 ex-wives. That's basically Gruff Sparty, and the logo. They finally put it on the helmet this week, and so the world was rejoicing because it's fucking awesome. I don't think it's going to be a one-off because State's normal logo is fantastic, so they just added another cool one to the repertoire. But that tells you how irrelevant Michigan State is this year, how irrelevant Penn State was. The best thing that came out of that game was the Gruff Sparty logo.
Yeah.
So, I think that's about it for college. You want to jump into your Cowboys? And
well, I mean, the Red Rifle went into his old stadium and took care of freaking business. I mean, welcome.
I didn't
home,
even see this game. You're talking about the Cincinnati Bengals.
Went to play the Bengals. The Cowboys went to play the Bengals, and Andy Dalton took care of business. Cowboys took care of business. 30 to 7 whooping. It was actually a fun Cowboys game to watch because the defense actually created 3 turnovers in the first half. Normally, when you're talking about a Cowboys game and you say 3 turnovers in the first half, it's usually the Cowboys turning the ball over 3 times in the first half. So it was a refreshing game against a ball club that's obviously worse off than the Cowboys at this point. So, hey, Cowboys win one. I don't, they're got a top 5 pick right now, so I prefer them not to fuck around with that too much.
Yeah, did you really want them to win that game?
Yeah, I mean, I like to see what. Well, they've got to play the 49ers this week, so they'll be back in the losing column. So, nice little victory. Nice little victory to wedge in there. It was nice to have that the same day that the Bears beat the crap out of Houston, almost the same exact scores, and it was really nice. So I didn't just have to endure like the Bears are suddenly back, with dealing with the Cowboys loss. So
Yikes. Yeah, I missed both those games. I saw the score of the Bears game. Like, where the fuck did this come from? But
Yeah.
Bears fans are probably upset that this gives Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy another week reprieve where they're not jettisoned from the franchise.
I think at this point, even if they do lose their jobs, which I think is close to inevitable, but the Bears front office always surprises.
Mhm.
That they were always going to be an end of the season firing.
Yeah, we talked about that last week.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the most likely. But if they keep winning meaningless games like this, maybe they'll hold on to their jobs, which
Well,
would be great.
they got the Vikings this week, so
Yeah.
we'll see how that goes.
Well, speaking of the NFC North, my Detroit Lions lost to the Green Bay Packers predictably, but they actually look fairly competitive, and they've looked competitive, and they just looked a little different under Darrell Bevell since the firing of Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn. So I mean, I don't want them to win games right now. We've talked about this ad nauseum, but it was nice to see them at least put up a decent effort and look a little bit competitive against a far superior squad and the Packers. But the big news with the Lions is the general manager search is ongoing and progressing. The Lions announced yesterday, I believe, that one of my top 3 candidates that I was hoping for to become GM would not be the GM, but become a special assistant to Sheila Ford Hamp, the owner, and Rod Wood, the CEO, president, whatever the fuck his title is. He's going to be he's hired full-time special assistant, and he will be assisting in the hiring of the new GM, which is probably good. It's definitely a good move to get Spielman in the organization. Basically he was the centerpiece, one of the centerpieces of the best Lions team in my lifetime, the only one that was fairly competitive and the only one that's actually won a playoff game in 57 years. So he was kind of the heart and soul of the late 80s, early 90s Lions. So he's always been associated with us. So it makes sense that he is a full-time employee and definitely part of hopefully a new regime. So I like that. The other part that I like about it is when you and I were discussing my top 3 candidates, I think I put him in as my third choice because it feels like if he became the GM, it would feel kind of a lot like Matt Millen. I don't like to say his name out loud, but former player, former linebacker, going into the broadcast booth, and then just all of a sudden he's the GM of a team, and we saw what a disaster that was. So it's almost like the Lions averted that by just bringing him on as a special assistant to advise the current ownership group, who admittedly has no idea what they're doing. So to get advisors in there is people who may know a little bit more about what they're doing, I think is a smart move. I like it. The next piece of news on that is they are officially interviewing I think he was my number 2 candidate that I would like to have, and that's Louis Riddick. They're going to interview him on Friday, and he is actually their very first external candidate that they're interviewing. So I think that's a really positive sign. They've interviewed some, probably assistant GMs or executives within the Lions organization right now that weren't let go with the previous regime. Maybe just a token interviews before the real ones start. But I thought that was cool. They're definitely, their first one is going to be Louis Riddick, who I think could be an interesting choice.
Any news about maybe Fonts coming into GM?
I'm not sure how Fonts is doing these days. He might be close to 90 at this point.
I was actually going to even ask if he was alive.
I'm trying to think. He's probably, I think he's pushing 80 at least. But
after I said that out loud, I'm like, oh, geez, I hope I didn't make a dead guy joke.
I think he's alive. I'm not sure, but well, I'll look that up after the show, and we'll keep tabs on Wayne.
Update me.
But it sounds like the search is getting aggressive, as they're gonna not only look to interview Lewis Riddick on
He-
Friday, but they're going to have 4 to 5 more interviews before Christmas. So before next
Wow,
week.
yeah.
So
They're really putting a pedal to the
Well,
metal there.
they've got competition because the Texans have already fired their general manager, so they're interviewing
Yeah.
people. And
True. Yeah.
I Jacksonville, I think either they have fired him or it's obvious they're going to be firing. I'm not sure what that situation is, but there is competition for new GMs across the league. So the fact that the Lions are hiring qualified people to be their advisors, and they're aggressively interviewing and starting to interview people that I would endorse, I think that's a really positive sign, which I'm not used to seeing management make decisions that I'm in favor of. So there's 2 right there. So maybe those are positive signs, but
It's looking like cupcakes and rainbows for you, Smitty.
I wouldn't go that far, and it'll be a long time before I eat a lion cupcake or see a lion rainbow. So we'll see. At least it's a little bit of positivity in a bleak situation. So that's all I've got on the Lions. I think we should bring up unless you have anything else, I would like to bring up Monday Night Football this week.
Yeah, I was just about to say we have to talk about probably the greatest football game this year.
That was so much fun.
I was jacked about it last week.
We talked about it. We couldn't wait to watch that. And it's the first time I could remember being excited about a Browns game or a Ravens game.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Like a Browns Ravens matchup. This game is the perfect billing. And I thought I was only gonna be wrong 1 week with the upset special because it looked really good when the Browns went ahead by 1 point, and then the unthinkable occurred.
Well, they tied it. They tied it, and then
they tied it, but they went ahead by a point, and then they went ahead by a point because they did the 2-point conversion earlier, and they were ahead by a point, and then the Ravens went down and scored, and then they went back down and scored. And
I guess it depends on what. There was 20 points scored in the last 2 minutes of the game. So whatever timeline you pick up at.
Yeah, but where it gets incredible is Lamar Jackson leaves the game, and everyone's like, "Holy shit!" And at that point, I'm like, "Oh man, my upset special is in the bag."
It's funny because Lamar Jackson leaving the game is going to be my shit you couldn't make up, but we'll get to that after this.
I basically just realized I was going to talk about this, and probably one of my things is really a shit you couldn't make up also, but
well, that's another one, but
so it's funny. It's related to this game, but so Lamar Jackson, they show a video of him going into the locker room, and the angle it's taken from, I was confused whether he was actually going in or coming back out originally. So then you see him coming back out, and I'm like, oh shit. So he comes back out
literally
with a couple minutes left in the game. He comes in for a 4th down play after, I don't even remember who the rookie they put in was.
Well, he got hurt too. He tweaked a knee or something.
Yeah,
so
he tweaked his knee. I don't know what the diagnosis is on him, but who really fucking cares? But anyway, so he comes in on a 4th and was it freaking 4th and 14 or something? It was a ridiculous amount of yards, and it looks like he's going to get sacked, and instead he scrambles and throws a freaking touchdown pass.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
It was just you couldn't have wrote a better run out of the locker room and throw a touchdown pass. Just crazy ass shit. And then of course Cleveland comes down and ties. Then he gets the ball back with a minute something. And the minute Cleveland scored that quickly, I went, they're going to lose. They're losing this football game because he's just going to march him down the field. And sure enough, he marches down the field. Field goal is made. Here's where the shit you couldn't
That's what I thought you were getting to with this.
Here's where the shit you couldn't make up comes in. With 2 seconds left on the clock, the Browns try this stupid ass play where all they do is run backwards. So right now the game is 45-42, and everyone who has bet the spread on this game is kind of like, well, who cares? It's a push.
It was 3. There was 3.5 in some places I saw. That's where it got tricky.
It was, but it was -3. It was -3 to -3.5, depending, and it's plus or negative either way. These fucking assholes, like it didn't affect me any, but I was laughing hysterically in the bed, watching in my room. Freaking then they run out of they get the safety, and millions of dollars get swung the other direction.
Steve Levy even made a thinly veiled comment to it. He's like, "You got to be kidding me!" Like, a lot of people are freaked out about this, but it was unbelievable. I didn't think about any of the gambling ramifications, but so was that your upset special that last week?
Yeah, but I said to take the Browns straight up. So when there was only like when there was Lamar Jackson out of the game and they were up by a point at that one point, I was like, oh, I got this. And then they got the ball back, still leading a point, but they went 3 and out. Like it's
Right.
like it was like everything worked against them towards the end of the game. But
Just the safety.
not only did Levy make that comment, but did you see Van Pelt?
Yeah, Van Pelt came in. Well, because he's got the famous segment, Bad Beats, that he's had on his radio show for decades before SportsCenter even. He just came out and was just like smirking. He's like, "That's why we do."
It was so great.
That was so classic.
So yeah, that would have been my shit you couldn't make up from the game.
Well, you mentioned mine, but mine is a literal shit you couldn't make up, in that it was, you mentioned it, that Lamar Jackson had to leave the game. Apparently it was because, he said it was because of cramps, but I think it was pretty obvious he either had to shit or did in fact shit himself on the field or on his way back, because you could tell by the way he was moving and the fact that he was able to come back into the game and throw a touchdown pass that he got over the cramps pretty quickly, or he just got rid of the shit and changed his uniform very quickly.
Well, the cramping and the shitting could be tied to one another.
Yeah, well, it's an easy way to explain away why you had to leave the game in a pivotal moment, but that led to all sorts of jokes. Instead of Superman, he's Pooper Man, and he had to go for 2, and he did it against the Browns. But that was such a literal shit you couldn't make up. It was hard not to bring up. So it made me think about stories where, it's all happened to us, maybe not in such conspicuous light with millions of people watching on TV, but I have to admit, I have shit myself in public once or twice in my history. I was wondering if you had any shitting yourself stories.
I have a great shitting myself story.
I thought you might. I wasn't sure, but I've got 2.
I have a great one,
so
and I'm totally willing to share. So.
I'm gonna share both of mine. So go ahead and share.
All right. So this is So I'm an adult. Let's just start off. These stories are going to consist as we're considered adults, right?
Well, I was 12 in one of mine.
Okay, so
I was definitely an adult in the second one.
This one, I am 22, 23 years old. I have finished my lunch at Fuddruckers. I don't know if anyone remembers Fuddruckers, but I don't think there's many left, if any at all.
Sounds like a place that would make you shit.
I have finished lunch at Fuddruckers, and I'm with my wife Tracy at the time, and we're only engaged at this point, so she had every opportunity to run. And as we're walking out to the car, I feel like I'm going to just fart, but it was a shark. It was a shark.
That's the worst.
And I looked at her and I said, we were planning on going to run around that afternoon and do some stuff. And I said, honey, you need to take me home. I've just shit myself.
Awesome. Fuddruckers.
Yeah, it was green too. There was definitely something not too good going on. So
right, that might be TMI, but
it was almost like a camouflage. It was a salute to the military.
We got more than we bargained for on that one, but
Smitty,
my first of 2 shit myself stories was aforementioned when I was at summer camp when I was 12 years old up in Fairview, Michigan, in northern Michigan. We had like our bunk houses, but then there was it wasn't an outhouse. It was like just a separate building where there were a bunch of toilets. So I don't know what we were doing. It was was in the evening. I know that. And suddenly I had to shit, but that outhouse facility was like 100 yards down the road. So I started doing the same Lamar Jackson waddle over as fast as I could over to the latrine. Didn't even come close to making. I was probably still 50 feet away from the building before just everything let loose.
Dang.
So I continued my walk. Fortunately, there's nobody outside at that point, and there's no one in the bathroom when I finally got in. So by then, I'm basically in tears, not knowing what to do. I got into a stall, dropped my drawers and just full of shit. I don't know if I was like audibly crying because some kid came in and he actually looked under the door. I remember, like, he knew something was wrong, and I'm like, and he of course he was horrified. I was horrified that this kid was looking at me while I'm sitting there in my shit shame, and all I could do was just yell. Our counselor was named TJ, so I'm like, go get TJ, go get TJ. And the kid took off. TJ is probably, just like a college age camp counselor. Gets there in record time. I thought it was going to be 10 minutes before I heard from him. He gets there and rips the door off the hinges, basically, because the kid put the fear of God in him somehow. Like, he may have thought I was dying and was like he was going to open the door and see like a bloodbath or something. Instead, he just saw a 12-year-old me just covered in shit, not knowing what to do. So somehow we got cleaned up. My shame was shared by only TJ, whoever you are, I don't remember. And whatever that fucking kid that decided to look under the door. Maybe he's an angel. Maybe he saved my life, but I was pissed at the time that he's had the audacity to look under the door and find out what was happening with.
Every time a kid shits himself, an angel gets its wings.
So somehow I survived that, but somehow I didn't learn my lesson, because I want to say probably 35 years later.
Wow. This is going to be good. This is the one.
Yeah, maybe not 35. No, because that'd be today.
I was going to say, this happened a few weeks ago?
This is about 10 years ago. I was living in Uptown in my condo. I was at the Bar Buena that you have been to many times.
Yes.
Somehow, I think I was with Vit, and we decided it is a whiskey bar, but I never drink whiskey there. I'm a beer guy anyway, but somehow we got into the whiskey. And this bar is, mind you, only 2 blocks from my house, and not a dangerous journey at all. But we were leaving. Vit went his way. I went a different direction than I would normally walk home. I don't know why. Like, I went like a block out of my way. Maybe I was just disoriented from the whiskey. And I realized, like, all of a sudden, like, I had no urge to shit, no even inkling there was a shitting issue coming up. And it hit me, and I was 3 blocks away from my place instead of 2 blocks. And it literally came, I got a little bit closer to my place. It came to the point where I was looking between parked cars where I could drop trow. I was in that desperate a situation.
Depending on where you were, but now if you were in the neighborhood,
well,
like going to your place, then that would be probably not good. But if you were a little more on the public side of the street, no one probably would have batted an eye.
Well, I'm not bragging about my neighborhood. I live in a pretty nice neighborhood. Not that my place is amongst these, but I happen to live next to the Hutchinson district, which is multi-million-dollar mansions.
The homes around the block by you is fine. I'm saying, like, if you were on the other side towards Bar Buena
I was
when
not.
you did this, you would have been fine.
Well, the main thought that came in my head is, you know what? I think I'm going to have to shit myself rather than try to shit between these cars, and, knowing that my neighbors may or may not have seen me doing this, that I'd be living next to for the next several years. And I ended up thinking, when you get the spasm and you think it's coming, but then you can, like, squash it down somehow. I did that. Didn't have to squat between the cars. I decided I'm going to try and make it to my place. So I still had like a half a block to go. Got into my building. My building. It's got the longest fucking hallway in Chicago, probably, to get down to my place finally.
Shining, guys. Just think shining.
I made it all the way down that hallway. I only have 1 set of stairs to go up. Got up the stairs. Got to my front door even. Struggled with the keys. I was trying to get
so
the keys.
basically, the shit acted like Michael Myers or Jason,
Yes.
and you're fumbling. You couldn't
I
get
fumbled
the
the
keys.
keys. Don't fumble the keys, kids. And I ended up shitting myself outside my front door.
Wow, that was what a huge disappointment, right? Like you must
Ruined.
have been.
I was this close. I was 10 feet away from my
Yeah.
toilet. I ruined my
Wow.
jeans, ruined my shoes. I didn't get anything on the floor. It all was contained within my jeans and my shoes, but I put those in a garbage bag immediately and just threw those out. I could have tried to wash that up, but that's not my MO. It's time to just buy new shit at that point.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's like whenever my kids like have had accidents, I'm like, just give me that. This ain't going. It's going on one place to garbage.
Yeah, so those are my shitting stories. I think I've sharded other times, but nothing as dramatic as that. But
I feel I'm trying to like. I mean, obviously, I've had other episodes.
A full dump. You haven't had a full dump
as like a kid or something, but nothing like that comes to mind that was funny, like the Fuddruckers one.
You're young. It could still happen. It happens to the best of us.
Well, no, now it's going to happen again because I'm getting old. We'll be reverting back to diapers. So,
well, be sure to share it with the podcast when it does happen.
Yeah, we'll have shit you could make up, like you said, literally.
Literal. So
all right.
I thought that was a good way to punctuate this episode with the Lamar Jackson Pooper Man episode. We have all been there in different forms. So if you haven't, you're lying. Tell us your poop stories if you'd like. Or actually, that was a terrible idea. Why did I just say that?
Yeah. Why did you say that? We're
just
finally
we'll get some
get responses. We're finally getting responses. We've tried before. Now we're really going to get them.
In lieu of sending us your poop stories, go ahead and rate, subscribe, and review us on our various podcast platforms. You can find the Limp Ditka's podcast on any platform you'd like to listen to podcasts on. You can find us at limpditkas.com, and that leads you right to our YouTube channel where you can catch out all our fancy videos. You can also catch us all over social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all at Limp Ditkas. We are part of the Wordhole Media Network that is in conjunction with our baseball podcast, Major League A-Holes. It's been going for a year and a half now. We're going to be debuting episode number 50. Maybe not this week, maybe next week. You and I need to talk about that, but it's coming up soon, so that'll be a big milestone. You can catch that anywhere you want to find a podcast and at majorleagueaholes.com, as well as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So yeah, I think that's about all I've got for this week, unless you have anything else.
No, just a friendly reminder. I'm 2-2 now in PV's upset specials after the disappointing but yet exciting and wonderful Browns loss that had everything from a guy having to take a quarter and a half dump. That's the amazing part about it. Or actually maybe worth
I think it was quicker than that. But
about a 15-minute dump.
I've done that. I think I did that today, actually.
I've done that. I get lost in reading sometimes. And then the swing on the spread bet. But I had said, take the Browns straight up. So just a reminder though, Notre Dame and the points, easy money this week. They're gonna
upset special.
Cover that 10.5 without a doubt. So
all right. Well,
all right.
We'll be back next week. This is going to be a good one with the final college football playoff standing. So stay tuned, kids. So I'm going to call this dagger time. We out. Peace.
Peace.